Have you ever wondered why you can't get angry? Why even when someone crosses a line, a voice in your head tells you to let it go, to be the bigger person, to not make a scene? Have you ever found yourself swallowing your words, smiling when you're hurt, apologizing even when you didn't do anything wrong, and then feeling exhausted, disconnected, and quietly resentful? That's not emotional maturity. That's the mask you were taught to wear, the good child mask, the one that stays calm, that stays polite, that doesn't cause problems, that keeps the peace. But what no one talks about, what you were never allowed to talk about, is that behind that mask is rage, not a tantrum, not bitterness, but a raw, sacred rage that was never given permission to exist because it wasn't safe to feel it. You learned early that anger made people go away. That truth caused explosions, that being too loud, too sensitive, too real was dangerous. So you adapted. You read the room. You noticed the tension. You adjusted. And over time, you forgot there was ever a self beneath the performance. The good child mask didn't appear because you were better, wiser, or more virtuous. It appeared because it was the only way you knew how to survive. In a home where love was conditional, where emotions were dangerous, where needs were treated like burdens, you had two choices: become a problem or become a solution. You became the solution. You didn't cry when you were scared. You didn't protest when you were hurt. You learned to anticipate moods, to manage atmospheres, to absorb tension so others wouldn't have to feel it. It wasn't kindness, it was survival. Because when you're small and dependent, love isn't optional. It's oxygen. And if love must be earned, through obedience, through invisibility, through perfection, then you'll do whatever it takes to stay close to the source of survival. Even if it means amputating pieces of your own soul, your nervous system learned quickly. Feeling anger makes them angry. Crying makes them leave. Needing makes them colder. So you suppressed. You adapted. You shut down the instincts that would threaten the fragile connection. Not because you were bad, but because you were intelligent. Your body, your mind, your spirit, every part of you conspired to stay safe in a system that demanded self-erasure. Carl Jung called this survival adaptation the persona, the mask we create to interact with the world around us. But when the persona becomes too strong, when it becomes not just a strategy, but an identity, something vital is lost. You forget that rage is a compass, that sadness is a call for comfort, that saying no is sacred. You begin to believe that being good means being silent, agreeable, selfless to the point of non-existence. The rage doesn't disappear. It simply goes underground, buried alive beneath the performance of goodness. And over time, the mask hardens. It fits so tightly that the real you suffocates underneath it. Not from malice, but from neglect. And when you live as a mask long enough, you forget there was ever a face at all. What happens to your anger when it has nowhere to go? It doesn't vanish. It doesn't dissolve into maturity. It festers. It coils itself into hidden places. Your gut, your jaw, your nervous system, the dreams you don't remember. You learned early that anger was dangerous, that expressing hurt, frustration, or even simple protest was a risk, one that could trigger rejection, punishment, humiliation. So you didn't yell, you didn't cry, you didn't storm off or slam doors. You swallowed it. And over time, what you swallowed became part of you, a weight you carried so quietly that even you forgot it was there. It shows up in different ways, in the tightness in your throat when you say, "It's fine," and it's not. In the resentment that simmers beneath your kindness. In the exhaustion that floods your body after another day of pretending you're not angry. In the sudden outbursts you can't explain. Outbursts that feel disproportionate, because the truth is, you weren't reacting to this moment. You were reacting to 1,000 moments you endured without protest. Anger doesn't disappear. It transforms. It becomes anxiety, depression, perfectionism, chronic fatigue, autoimmune conditions no doctor can fully explain. It becomes a restless, aching hunger for something you can't name. Because you're not actually craving achievement, success, or even love. You're craving freedom. The freedom to finally, unapologetically exist. You were never meant to be this easy to carry. You were never supposed to be this small. You learned to shrink because it kept you safe. But staying small now is what's keeping you stuck. Your rage isn't proof that you're broken. It's proof that you were alive, even when they tried to silence you. And the fact that you still feel it, even if it's buried deep, means the real you is still there, waiting. When you bury your anger, you don't just bury the rage, you bury yourself. Carl Jung called this the formation of the shadow, the parts of yourself you disown in order to survive. At first, the split is small. You silence a feeling here. You dim a need there. You tell yourself it doesn't matter, because belonging matters more. But survival is expensive, and the price is authenticity. You, who were once vibrant, curious, instinctual, alive, learned to become calculated, cautious, pleasing. You adapted your spirit to the demands of an environment that could only love you under certain conditions. You mistook compliance for goodness. You mistook silence for strength. You mistook invisibility for peace. But deep underneath, something rotted. The denied parts of you didn't disappear. They waited. They waited in the forgotten corners, where your anger lives, where your wildness lives, where your soul's pulse has been muted but never fully extinguished. And here's the part most people miss. You didn't just exile your anger. You exiled your joy, your boldness, your power, your ability to say, "This is who I am, and I will not shrink for you." Because when you push down one part of yourself, you inevitably push down everything attached to it. Shadow work isn't just about facing the bad parts, the selfishness, the rage, the grief. It's about recovering the sacred parts too, the ones that made you vibrant, magnetic, alive before you learned it was dangerous to be fully seen. You weren't born to be acceptable. You were born to be whole. And wholeness cannot exist without reclamation, without reaching into the places you were taught to abandon, without daring to say, "I want all of me back." Even the parts they said were too much, especially those. When you live cut off from your anger, you don't just lose your fire, you lose your feeling. The body can't selectively numb. When you silence your rage, you silence your passion. When you mute your grief, you mute your capacity for joy. You may still smile, you may still achieve. You may still perform the rituals of a good life. But something essential goes missing beneath it all. You stop feeling fully alive. You walk through your own existence like a ghost, present, but not inhabiting, functioning, but not belonging to yourself. You wonder why you're so tired, why you can't seem to get excited about anything real, why no achievement ever feels like enough. It's because the part of you that was supposed to dance, scream, fight, cry, dream, was locked away so long ago, you forgot it existed. But if you listen closely, you'll hear it. In the tension in your jaw when you tell yourself you're fine. In the fatigue that rolls over you after pretending to be happy. In the sudden surge of emotion when someone sees you too deeply, and you don't know whether to run or collapse into them. That's not weakness, that's life still trying to reach you. The numbness you feel isn't the absence of feeling. It's the weight of every unexpressed part of you pressing against the walls you built to survive. Carl Jung wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." And this is the pain he meant. Not the pain of being wounded, but the pain of remembering. Remembering that you were never meant to be neutral. You were never meant to be small enough to fit inside someone else's idea of you. You were meant to feel, fully, wildly, fiercely, even when it's inconvenient. Especially when it's inconvenient. Because a life without anger, without sorrow, without awe, isn't peace. It's quiet extinction. And you were never meant to go extinct inside yourself. Healing doesn't mean becoming better at pretending you're fine. Healing means reclaiming the parts of you that were forbidden. The parts that once burned too brightly for the rooms you were forced to survive in. It means meeting the anger you were taught to fear. Not as a monster to be banished, but as a guardian who kept your spirit alive when silence almost extinguished it. It means grieving the years you spent being good at the cost of being real. Not because you failed, but because you adapted. And adaptation is not failure. It's intelligence in the face of impossibility. The rage you carry isn't a flaw, it's a compass. It points to the places where you were not met, not heard, not protected. It reminds you that your boundaries were crossed, that your soul was asked to contort itself for love that should have been unconditional. When you reclaim your anger, you don't become destructive, you become whole. Because anger is not the opposite of peace. Suppression is. True peace doesn't come from silence. It comes from self-possession. From standing in your own body and saying, "I will no longer apologize for my fullness." This is the invitation your rage is offering you now. To tear up the script you were given. To stop asking for permission to exist. To stop playing the role they applauded and start living the life that was always buried underneath. You will not be loved by everyone when you do this. You will not be understood by those still clinging to their own masks. But you will belong, maybe for the first time, to yourself. Carl Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And becoming yourself isn't about addition. It's about retrieval. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are not too much. You were never broken. You were silenced. You were never weak. You were strategic. You were never too much. You were surviving in a world that demanded your extinction. They didn't kill the fire inside you. They only taught you to fear it. But the fire is still there, waiting, unruined, unashamed. This is not the end of you, it's the beginning. Not the beginning they wrote for you, but the one you write for yourself. The part of you they couldn't reach, the part they couldn't shame, tame, or erase, is still alive, and it's ready to come back. No apologies, no permission, only truth.